Hi, it's your $2 Tuesday movie critic here. Today I'm going to be reviewing the movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now this is the 2014 version, and I have to say I really loved it. The full disclosure here, I am a child of the 80s, so like most children of the 80s, I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. I even saw a couple of the comic books. And when the movies came out, I didn't actually go to the theater to see them, but I did watch them on television when they came to the small screen. So I did love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I loved the theme song. At that time, I knew it by heart, and all I remember is Heroes in a Half Shell, Turtle Power. But this new version of it was really great. I enjoyed the movie as a whole. I don't say that it's better than the older version, but I think by bringing a few new twists to it in the newer version, that they just made you look at it in a different way, and I liked it. Some of the things that I really liked about it was that the way the turtles looked, they were computer generated, and they showed really vibrant facial expressions. Their moves when they were doing their fighting and stuff were so much more realistic, and it was so cool. I also like the fact that they kept the characteristics of the turtles authentic, meaning that Donatello was still the one that's the smart one. He's my favorite. The smart one that always kept his cool, always making all the cool gadgets and stuff that the turtles use. Leonardo was the leader and always fighting with Raphael, of course, was the hothead, always getting mad about something. And then you have Michelangelo, Mikey, who was always goofing off, making jokes, just keeping everybody in stitches for the most part, because he did say a lot of funny stuff. So I love that they kept the characteristics authentic of the turtles, and that they stayed teenagers. I didn't know how they were going to do that part, but you can't get away from the teenage part. They're teenagers. And so they did a great job with that. They did a few twists with it, as I said before, with the newer version, and they had to. I mean, if you're going to make a newer version of a movie, then you're going to have to make some changes. And hopefully those changes work out. But you're not going to keep it exactly the same, or what's the point of making the movie? So the changes that they made, I think they really worked. They, had a new type of way that the Turtles and Splinter, their master, originated their powers, and how Splinter learned karate to teach to his turtles, and how he became their father figure. So, there was a different twist to that. And it was cool. It worked. It really did work. And there was a twist to April's relationship with the Turtles and Splinter as well. And there was also a different relationship between Shredder, the mean bad guy, and the Turtles as well. And there was, speaking of, again, April's, the way she was still a broadcast journalist, like she was in the original movie, only in this movie, she's a younger version of the original April. And, and she did a good job. I really enjoyed that. I liked how they did the twist there, too. Because, you would think that the teenagers meeting a teenage, well, she's in her 20s. April is in her 20s. But someone closer to their own age, and, having more in common with them, kind of. And I love that they kept the whole pizza thing in there. Because, they love pizza. And it even showed why they started loving pizza in the first place. So that was pretty cool, too. All in all, the movie was great. I enjoyed it. And this is speaking from an original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. So, and if you liked or if you love the original version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, then you're going to love this version as well. Okay, cliche things. I didn't see any really cliche things in there. Yeah, you had your tear-jerky moments and stuff, and there was this huge speech that Raph made in one of the scenes that just seemed like, oh my gosh, is he ever going to stop talking? But it was some really nice things that he said. But the way they stopped it was pretty cool too. And everybody was like, so that worked. It worked. It really did work. But that was, if you want to call something cliche, that was the most cliche moment of the whole movie to me. My final recommendation for this movie is, like I said before, if you were a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan as a kid like me, and if you love the original version, then you're going to love this version too. Yeah, there are a few twists that change, but they're not taking away from the fact of the basis of the movie, which is these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles grow up and they become ninjas, and they're taught by their father-like figure Splinter to kick some major butts, and Shredder is still their enemy. Yeah, there's some twists in there, but that basis still stays the same. So, you won't lose any sleep over, oh my god, they changed them. They made them into something that they're not. They didn't do that here. It was really great. And then for parents, I didn't hear any curse words. A thing about this movie, too, is it's for not just kids, but for the older adults, too. I think the adults are going to love it just the same as the kids. The older version, to me, was more for kids. Those kids that saw the cartoons, that read the comic books. And when they brought out the movie, yeah, that's who their target audience was. For this newer version, I think they wanted it to be for both adults and kids alike. One of the things that people complained about from the old movie and may complain about in this movie is there's a lot of violence in both of the versions. But it's not gratuitous violence. It's violence and it needs to be there because there's fights going on. As you remember, one of the parts of their names is ninjas. So there's going to be fighting going on. And they're fighting against the bad guy. All these superhero movies now, they have a lot of violence in them. And for the most part, I don't think it's gratuitous. Unless you count Iron Man, which don't even get me started on that movie. Anyway, but this movie, it really wasn't gratuitous violence. And the violence that they had, it was them fighting. And even with the swords, when they used those, there was no bloodshed. You didn't see like a lot of blood splattering. It wasn't gross or anything like that. It's not something that's going to make a kid that watches it have nightmares. I can say that because I don't like scary stuff. I don't like gross stuff like that. So I recommend it to anybody. Alright, so let's get to the old school movies. Of course, the first old school movie that I'm going to compare this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to 2014 version is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 version. And it was a great one. It really, they said that it was one of the top selling earners of 1990. So, and it did a really good job. The critics kind of like panned it, but those fans that loved them, they really loved the movie. And it's still a cult classic to this day. The comparisons, like I said, I already named some of them. One of them, like I said, 2014 version had the turtles computer generated. If you looked at the 1990 version, they look like some guys had on rubber suits. Muscly rubber suits with a shell on it, but muscle suits nonetheless. So, yeah, you can tell that. So, their facial expressions, even when they talked, it wasn't very realistic. And I learned later that the turtle suits were designed by Jim Henson, who is, the godfather of the Muppets. So it's like, yeah, it made sense that the turtle suits would look like that. But it didn't stop the enjoyment of the movie. People were just used to seeing things like that. Computer generation type action or type figures hadn't come out at that time. This is just 1990. So when it came out, everybody was like, wow, this looks really great. We didn't think you could do this. But now comparing it to the 2014 version, you're like, oh my God, this looks horrible. At least some people would say that. I am not one of those people. Just because it's, it was not, fancy schmancy back then doesn't make it worse. And, okay, and then another difference between the 1990 and the 2014 version was in the 1990 version, April O'Neil was an adult like a more of a motherly type or big sisterly type figure to the Turtles. And there was actually a romance between this guy and April in the movie, as opposed to in the 2014 version where April was in her 20s and she was like, you know, there was a guy there, her cameraman, that had the hots for her, but to me it was kind of creepy. I'm sorry, because he was like in his 40s, he was her cameraman, and it's just creepy to me. You know, there's a 16-year difference between their ages. And they didn't say that in the movie, of course. I just looked that up later on. But I thought that April and Mikey had more chemistry than April and the cameraman. But take that how you want to. I'm serious. This is how I felt. Another difference is, like I told you before, how the Turtles became Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And the fact that their relationship with April was a lot different. It started way earlier than it did in the original version. In the original version, they met when April, who was, in this case, a serious broadcast journalist, and she was reporting the things that the Foot Clan were doing. And so Shredder decided that she was way too dangerous, and they needed to kidnap her. And so one of the Turtles, I think it was Raph, he saves her life. But in the newer version, it shows that they meet April earlier. Of course, they don't know it at the time, and neither does Splinter, but they discover it later on. I think April was the one that discovers it, and she's the one that tells them about it. It also changes how they were originated. In the 1990 version, Splinter tells the Turtles that they originated when they are engulfed in toxic waste, and they all grow up and get human-like features. And this is different in the 2014 version, which I think both originational stories are pretty cool, except for the experimenting, thing in the 2014 version. But that's a personal view, and I won't go there. I will just, stick with the movie. But yeah, I didn't care too much for that particular situation on their origination, but I decided to let it go on there. And that's just a personal thing with me. But I won't say too much about it because I don't want to give away anything about the movie, too much of the movie, to those people that haven't seen it. So these are like a few of the comparisons to the movie. And I really did enjoy both movies. And I will watch the 1990 version and the 2014 version again because they were both great. My second old school movie that I'm comparing to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is Blade, starring Wesley Snipes. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, hold on. What in the heck does Blade and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have in common? Well, listen to me, people. They have quite a bit in common. And I'm going to break it down for you. Okay. First thing, they both are mutated. They get their strength from mutations. The Turtles get their mutated strength from chemicals in the lab, and Blade gets his mutated strength from the fact that his mom was bitten by a vampire when she was pregnant with Blade. So, mutated strength that makes them superhuman. And then you have the Turtles that after their mutation, they grow up, and they're turtles that take on human-like qualities and characteristics and physical, things. And you have Blade that when he grows up, he's human that takes on vampire-like strengths and none of their weaknesses, as the theme of the show is. Blade is a vampire, half human, that has all the strengths of a vampire and none of their weaknesses, except for one, because he does age. He still ages, unlike regular vampires that don't age at all. So there's another similarity. Okay. Okay. Now, of course, Blade came out back in 1998, and it is one of my very favorite top action movies. I mean, it was cool. But Blade has a lot of violence to it, and unlike Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Blade's violence is bloody and gory in most cases, and you do see all of it. And so, yeah, it is rated R. I would not recommend that parents let their kids go see Blade. You know, wait until they get older, or, you know, under direct supervision or something like that, because it is so gory. I mean, I can barely watch some of it without covering my eyes. But, oh, you gotta look at this casing. Yes, this is VHS. But this one was the original, as far as I know, the original case, VHS case for Blade, and you can feel, you can feel the words and the body. Well, if only the real body, right? It was the first time, at least as far as I know, that there was a featured black hero from Marvel Comics in a movie. And you can do your research and find out if I'm wrong. Because, yes, of course, we go back to Storm, who was, and I don't think she had been in a movie at the time, but that's neither here or there. We'll get back to Storm in a few minutes. But for now, yeah, and I didn't know that Blade at that time was a Marvel Comics hero. I just knew that he was taken from the comic books and put into his own action movie. Another similarity is that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Blade, they get no respect as superheroes. And I kind of like touched on that just a minute ago. Because for one, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are teenagers and they're turtles. But that does not negate the fact that they are superheroes. They, you know, will fight against evil. And just like Blade does. Blade gets no respect as a superhero. I mean, think about it. Just for a moment. When a person asks you, name a black superhero, most people go right for Storm, because she's what a lot of people know as the black superhero, and she's part of the Marvel Comics as well. And then some people even go to Hancock. I know I've named him a couple of times, but when we really think of it, yeah, Hancock, a.k.a. Will Smith, had a movie, but where are the comic books? Where's all of that? There's none of that. He had one movie, and that was it. And he did some fancy stuff, but yeah, I don't really think that we can count him a superhero until he has a series of something. You know, either movies or comic books or even books. But yeah, he doesn't even have his own cartoon. But nobody really names Blade. And one reason that I think that is because Blade is not your regular superhero. For one, yes, he saves the human race, but that's never his, at least based on the cartoon, at least based on the comic book and the movies, he's not really trying to help humanity as much as he's just trying to kill vampires. That's his main goal. He hates vampires. They were the ones that killed his mom and took him away from her. So, and in the end, you know, they kind of do a job on Whistler, who was his father figure. The fact that he's saving humanity is just an icing on the cake, you know, or a fringe benefit, so to speak. But it's not his main goal. It's not his main purpose. He doesn't really care for humans that much either. And as you can see in the movie, he doesn't have a lot of humanity. So, yeah. And so that's one of the reasons that he's not really considered a superhero, at least in my opinion. But they should get their just due, because they're all, the Turtles and Blade are both superheroes, and they should get their due. Just like with the Turtles, when you ask what's a green superhero, the first person that comes to mind is the Incredible Hulk. Because, you know, again, he's a part of the Marvel Comics, and he's the #1 green superhero. And then some may even think of the Green Hornet, who technically is not green because it's his suit that's green, not him. But, okay, neither here nor there. They think of him too. And some may even think of the She-Hulk. But, you know, and she did have her own comic book series. She's more of a superhero than Hancock is. Anyway, so, yeah, there you go there. Now, let's get back to other similarities. They get no respect. They're the Rodney Dangerfields of their genre of superheroes. Okay, now both use martial arts as a form of fighting and martial arts type equipment, because they have the swords. They both use the swords, and they both do the martial arts type stuff. Blade stuff is a mix of a lot of things, where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles use karate and ninja style fighting. So it's pretty cool. And that's definitely another similarity. And another similarity is they both have father-like leaders that teach them and protect them and help them to survive. Of course, with the Turtles, you have Splinter. He's the only one that's any type of comparison or that can really stand toe-to-toe with Shredder. And he does. He holds his own in both in both versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Even though I think he does a better job in the original 1990 version. And he tries really hard in the 2014 version, but it's not the same. But he's still a father-like figure in both versions to his sons, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And, you know, even in the cartoon, you know, he's always teaching them lessons, and he's always trying to, you know, make them laugh or so that he can get down to their level and understand them and things like that. So I always loved Splinter. I always thought he was so cool. Still do. And then, of course, for Blade, there's Whistler. And Whistler is the man that you learn from the original version that found Blade when he was just a kid in the streets, you know, barely surviving. And he took him under his wing, and he, you know, taught him how to survive. He taught him how to fight. He was the one that built all those, or made all that equipment that he uses, you know, the guns and all that stuff, and he taught him how to use those. So, yeah, Whistler is a father-like figure for Blade. And you can even see it in the movie, how Blade respects him and to a certain point loves him, even though it's hard for Blade to show those type of emotions. I think Whistler is more emotional than Blade is. He doesn't have a lot of human-like characteristics. I think the older he gets, the less human he becomes, actually. They don't say that in the movie. That's just my opinion. Alright, another similarity between Blade and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies is both mainly fight one specific group. For the Turtles, it's the Foot Clan, and for Blade, it's vampires. This is my favorite similarity, is they both, in both original movies, they both have strong female leads that can hold their own. Now, in the Turtles movies, it's April O'Neil, and in the 2014 version, she's played by Megan Fox. And Megan Fox does a great job. I mean, she's a beautiful girl, of course, but that does not negate from the fact that she is an excellent action heroine type character. I mean, she was hanging with them all the way. So April really holds her own with the Turtles, you know, and you'll see in the movie that they really depend on each other. In the 2014 version, I think it was, and even in the original version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, she really takes care of them. Like I said, it's more of a big sisterly type character in the original version, but in the 2014 version, I think she still has that really deep care for them, especially when she realizes how much they mean to her. So, and when it comes to the action, she's there, you know. She's like, I'm going to be with you guys to the end, and she is. And she's doing the action scenes right along with them, and it's really cool. And the lead character in Blade's movie is Dr. Karen, who's a hematologist. That's, of course, this means she studies blood, and which is the perfect lead character for him to have, because she really helps him out a lot. And this is played by Nabush Wright. Now, if you didn't see the original or the #1 Blade, then you need to. Because Nabush Wright, or Dr. Karen, as the character is, she is excellent. I mean, when I initially saw Blade, I wanted them to bring her back in Blade 2. Or even better, get her own become her own superhero, because she is fierce in those movies. I mean, she starts out as just a regular doctor in doing her job, and she gets basically pulled into the life that Blade leads unwillingly, but she's still there, and she ends up, you know, not only trying to save her life, but to help Blade out as well. And she is fierce. I mean, the more she gets into the movie, the more she envelops herself into the action and stuff. It's really cool. And I really loved her. I had never heard of her before, but I really loved her in this movie. And I was so disappointed when they didn't bring her back in any of the other Blade movies. I thought she was great. I really believe she held her own in the Blade movie, and that she should have been a superhero herself. You know, I almost wish she had stayed half a vampire just so she could become, you know, the female version of Blade, because she was just that good. So yeah, and that was the last similarity between the two movies. So as you can see, there are quite a few similarities between the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Blade. And it just because they're different species doesn't mean they can't have similarities. And that's why I picked that movie. I thought it was perfect for this. Now, if you think there's a movie that compares better to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, let me know at the bottom of the screen. So that is my review for today. I hope you like it, and join me next time for another review. And if you have any recommendations or any questions or comments, please leave them at the bottom of the screen, and I'll see you next time.